Nothing in my life has ever felt as good as the cool, clear flow of liquid that pulled me out of my dreamless sleep. The woman stood over me with a water bottle and was carefully showering me with the sweet spray. I shuddered with pleasure as the trickle painted my back and raised my mouth to lap and bite at the stream the way I'd often attacked the drizzle that fell from the faucet above the trough in the yard. A man stood nearby, and both he and the woman were watching me with concerned expressions. "Do you think he'll be okay?" the woman asked. "Looks like the water is doing the job," he replied. From both of them came the sort of open adoration I often felt pouring out of Senora when she stood at the fence to watch us play. I rolled on my back so the water would wash over my hot tummy, and the woman laughed. "Such a cute puppy," the woman exclaimed. "Do you know what kind it is?" "Looks like a golden retriever," the man observed. "Oh, puppy," the woman murmured. Yes, I could be puppy, I could be fella, I could be whatever they wanted, and when the woman swept me up in her arms, heedless of the wet splat I made against her blouse, I kissed her until she closed her eyes and giggled. "Oh, you're coming home with me, little guy. I've got someone I want you to meet." Well, it looked like I was a front seat dog now. She held me in her lap while she drove, and I gazed up at her in gratitude. Curious about my new surroundings, I finally crawled off and explored the inside of the car, astounded at the rich, cold air coming from two vents in front of me. Against my wet fur, the air was so chilly I actually began to tremble, and wound up climbing onto the flat floor on the other side of the car, where a soft warmth, just like Mother, quickly lured me back into another nap. I woke up when the car stopped, sleepily regarding the woman as she reached down and picked me up. "Oh, you are so cute," she whispered. As she held me against her chest and stepped out of the car, I could feel her heart beating strongly, and I sensed something like alarm coming off of her. I yawned off the last vestiges of my nap, and after a quick squat in some grass, was ready to face whatever challenge had her so worked up. "Ethan," she called, "come here. I want you to meet someone." I looked up at her curiously. We were in front of a big white house, and I wondered if there were kennels in the back, or maybe a big yard. I couldn't hear any barking, though, so maybe I was the first dog here. Then the front door of the house banged open, and a human being like I'd never seen before ran out on the porch, jumped down the cement steps, and stopped dead in the grass. We stared at each other. It was, I realized, a human child, a male. His mouth broke into a huge grin, and he spread his arms. "A puppy!" he sang, and we ran to each other, instantly in love. I could not stop licking him, and he could not stop giggling, and we rolled together in the grass. I guess I had never bothered to consider that there might be such a thing as a boy, but now that I had found one, I thought it was just about the most wonderful concept in the world. He smelled of mud and sugar and an animal I'd never scented before, and a faint meaty odor clung to his fingers, so I licked them. By the end of the day, I would know him not just by smell, but also by sight, sound, and gesture. His hair was dark, like Bobby's, but very short, and his eyes were much lighter. He had a way of turning his head to look at me as if he were trying to hear me more than see me, and his voice bubbled with joy whenever he talked to me. For the most part, though, I was drinking in his scent, licking his face, chewing his fingers. "Can we keep him, Mom? Can we keep him?" the boy gasped between giggles. The woman squatted down to pet my head. "Well, you know your dad, Ethan. He's going to want to hear that you'll take care of him." I will, and that you'll walk him and feed him. "Every day, I'll walk him and feed him and brush him and give him water, and you'll have to clean up when he poops in the yard." The boy didn't answer that one. "I bought some puppy food at the store. Let's give him some dinner." You won't believe what happened. I had to run to the gas station and get a jug of water. The poor thing was nearly dead with heat exhaustion, the woman said. "Want some dinner? Huh? Dinner?" the boy asked. Sounded pretty good to me. To my amazement, the boy picked me up and carried me right into the house. I had never in my life imagined such a thing was even possible. I was going to like it here just fine. Some of the floors were soft and embedded with the same animal odor I had picked up on the boy, while other floors were slick and hard, causing my feet to skitter out from underneath me as I pursued the boy through the house. When the boy picked me up, the flow of love between us was so strong it gave me a hollow feeling in my tummy, almost like hunger. I was lying on the floor with the boy, wrestling over a cloth, when I felt a vibration rumble through the house and heard the sound I had learned meant the closing of a car door. "Your father's home," the woman, whose name was Mom, told the boy, who was called Ethan. Ethan stood up and faced the door, and Mom came to stand beside him. I grabbed the cloth and gave it a victorious shake, but found it much less interesting without a boy attached to the other end of it. A door opened. "Hi, Dad!" the boy yelled. A man stepped into the room, looking back and forth between the two of them. "Okay, what is it?" he asked. "Dad, Mom found this puppy," Ethan said. He was locked in a car, nearly dead from heat stroke. Mom said, "Can we keep him, Dad? He's the best puppy in the world." I decided to take advantage of the lapse in security and dove onto the boy's shoes, biting his laces. "Oh, I don't know. This is not a good time," the father said. "Do you know how much work a puppy is? You're only 8 years old, Ethan. It's too much responsibility." I yanked on one of the boy's laces and it gave, sliding away from his shoes. I tried to run off with it, but it remained attached to his feet so that it yanked me back, tumbling me head over heels. Snarling, I dove back onto the laces, grabbing them and giving them a furious shake. "I'll take care of him, and I'll walk him and feed him and wash him," the boy was saying. "He's the best puppy in the world, Dad. He's already housebroken." Having wrestled the shoes into submission, I decided this would be a good time to take a little break, and squatted, depositing a stool along with my urine. Wow, did that get a reaction? Soon the boy and I were sitting on the soft floor. Mom would say, "George," and then Ethan would say, "George, here, George. Hi, George." And then Dad would say, "Skippy?" And Ethan would say, "Skippy? Are you Skippy? Here's Skippy." It was exhausting. Later, playing out in the backyard, the boy called me Bailey. "Here, Bailey! Here, Bailey!" he would call, slapping his knees. When I trotted over to him, he would dash away, and we ran around and around in the backyard. As far as I was concerned, it was an extension of the game inside, and I was prepared to respond to Hornet and Ike and Butch, but it seemed like this time Bailey would stick. After another meal, the boy took me into the house. "Bailey, I want you to meet Smokey the cat." Holding me tightly against his chest, Ethan turned so I could see, sitting in the middle of the floor, a brown and gray animal whose eyes grew big when he spotted me. This was the smell I'd been tracking. The thing was larger than me, with tiny ears that looked like they'd be fun to bite. I struggled to get down to play with this new friend, but Ethan held me tight. "Smokey, this is Bailey," Ethan said. At last, he placed me on the floor, and I ran over to kiss the cat, but he drew his lips back from a set of really wicked-looking teeth and spat at me, arching his back and thrusting his puffy tail straight up into the air. I stopped, puzzled. Didn't he want to play? The musty smell coming from under his tail was delicious. I tried to inch in and give Smokey's butt a friendly sniff, and he hissed and spat and raised a paw, nails extended. "Aw, Smokey, be a nice cat. Be a nice cat." Smokey gave Ethan a baleful glare. I picked up on the boy's encouraging tone and yipped in a very welcoming fashion, but the cat remained unapproachable, even batting at my nose when I tried to lick his face. Okay, well, I was ready to play with him whenever he wanted, but I had more important things to care about than some snotty cat. Over the next several days, I learned my place in the family. The boy lived in a small room full of wonderful toys, while Mom and Dad shared a room with no toys whatsoever. One room had a basin of water I could only drink from if I climbed into it, and also had no toys unless you counted the white paper that I could pull from the wall in a continuous sheet. The rooms for sleeping were at the top of some steps that were impossible for me to climb despite my full-sized dog legs. The food was all kept hidden in one part of the house. Every time I decided I needed to squat and relieve myself, everyone in the house went crazy, scooping me up and racing out the door with me, setting me in the grass and watching me until I'd recovered from the trauma of it all, enough to continue with my business, which earned me so much praise I wondered if this was my main function in the family. Their praise was inconsistent, though, because there were some papers they'd set out for me to rip up. And if I squatted on them, I was called a good dog, too, but with relief, not joy. And as I mentioned, sometimes when we were all in the house together, they became upset with me for doing exactly the same thing. "No!" Mom or Ethan would shout when I wet the floor. "Good boy!" they'd sing when I peed in the grass. "Okay, that's good," they'd say when I urinated on the papers. I could not understand what in the world was wrong with them. Dad mostly ignored me, though I sensed he liked it when I got up in the morning to keep him company while he ate. He regarded me with mild affection. Nothing like the berserk adoration flooding out of Ethan, though I could feel that was how much Dad and Mom loved the boy. Occasionally, Dad would sit at the table in the evenings with the boy, and they would talk quietly, concentrating, while sharp, pungent fumes filled the air. Dad would let me lie on his feet, since the boy's feet were too far off the ground for me to reach. "Look, Bailey, we built an airplane," the boy said after one of these sessions, thrusting a toy at me. It made my eyes water with the chemical odors, so I didn't try to take it away. Making noises, the boy ran around the house holding the toy, and I chased after him and tried to tackle him. Later, he put the thing on a shelf with other toys that faintly smelled of the same chemicals. And that was it, until he and Dad decided to build another one. "This one is a rocket, Bailey," Ethan told me, offering me a toy shaped like a stick. I turned up my nose at it. "We're going to land one on the moon one day, and then people will live there, too. Would you like to be a space dog?" I heard the word dog and sensed there was a question, so I wagged. Yes, I thought, I would be happy to help clean the dishes. Cleaning the dishes was where the boy would put a plate of food down and I would lick it. It was one of my jobs, but only when Mom wasn't watching. Mostly, though, my job was to play with the boy. I had a box with a soft pillow in it where the boy put me at night, and I came to understand that I was to stay in the box until Mom and Dad came in and said goodnight, and then the boy would let me up into his bed to sleep. If I got bored in the night, I could always chew on the boy. My territory was behind the house, but after a few days I was introduced to a whole new world, the neighborhood. Ethan would burst out the front door in a dead run, me at his heels, and we'd find other girls and boys, and they'd hug me and wrestle with me and tug toys from my mouth and throw them. "This is my dog, Bailey," Ethan said proudly, holding me up. I squirmed at the sound of my name. "Look, Chelsea," he said, offering me to a girl his size. "He is a golden retriever. My mother rescued him. He was dying in a car from heat exhaust station. When he gets old enough, I'm going to take him hunting on my grandpa's farm." Chelsea cuddled me to her chest and gazed into my eyes. Her hair was long and lighter than even mine, and she smelled like flowers and chocolate and another dog. "You are sweet. You are so sweet, Bailey. I love you," she sang to me. I liked Chelsea. Whenever she saw me, she would drop to her knees and let me pull on her long blonde hair. The dog scent on her clothing came from Marshmallow, a long-haired brown and white dog who was older than I, but still a juvenile. When Chelsea let Marshmallow out of her yard, we would wrestle for hours, and sometimes Ethan would join us, playing. When I lived in the yard, Senora loved me, but I now realized it was a general love, aimed at all the dogs in the pack. She called me Toby, but she didn't say my name the way the boy whispered, "Bailey, Bailey, Bailey," in my ear at night. The boy loved me. We were the center of each other's worlds. Living in the yard had taught me how to escape through a gate. It had led me straight to the boy, and loving and living with the boy was my whole purpose in life. From the second we woke up until the moment we went to sleep, we were together. But then, of course, everything changed. 7. One of my favorite things to do was to learn new tricks, as the boy called them, which consisted of him speaking to me in encouraging tones and then feeding me treats. Sit, for example, was a trick where the boy would say, "Sit, Bailey, sit," and then he would climb on my rear end, forcing it to the ground, and then he would feed me a dog biscuit. Dog door was a trick where we would go up to the garage where Dad kept his car, and the boy would shove me through a plastic flap in the side door to the backyard. Then he'd call for me, and I'd push my nose through the flap, and he'd feed me a dog biscuit. My legs, I was gratified to see, kept growing with the rest of me, so that as the nights grew cooler, I was able to keep up with the boy, even at a sprint. One morning, the dog door trick took on an entirely different meaning. The boy was up early, barely after sunrise, and Mom was running in and out of different rooms. "Take care of Bailey," Mom called at one point. I looked up from where I was giving a chew toy a serious working over, taking note of Smokey the cat, who sat on the counter and gazed down upon me with insufferable haughtiness. I picked up the chew toy and shook it to demonstrate to Smokey what a great time he was missing out on by being so snooty. "Bailey," the boy called. He was carrying my bed, and intrigued, I followed him out to the garage. What was this game? "Dog door," the boy said to me. I sniffed his pockets, but couldn't smell any biscuits. Since the whole point of playing dog door was, in my opinion, the dog biscuits, I decided to turn away and lift my leg on a bicycle. "Bailey!" I felt impatience from the boy and regarded him in puzzlement. "You sleep here, okay, Bailey? You be a good dog. If you need to go to the bathroom, you go out the dog door, okay? Dog door, Bailey. I have to go to school now, okay? I love you, Bailey." The boy gave me a hug, and I licked him in the ear. When he turned, I naturally followed, but at the door to the house, he barred me from entry. "No, Bailey. You stay in the garage until I get home. Dog door, okay, Bailey? You be a good dog." He shut the door in my face. Stay? Dog door? Good dog? How were these terms, which I'd heard so often, even remotely related? And which one was stay again? None of this made any sense to me. I sniffed around the garage, which was full of wonderful smells, but I wasn't in the mood to explore. I wanted my boy. I barked, but the door to the house remained silent. So I scratched it. Still nothing. I heard some children yelling from the front of the house and ran to the big garage doors, hoping they would lift up as they sometimes did when the boy stood in front of them, but nothing happened. A loud truck of some kind swept up the voices of the children and carried them away. A few minutes later, I heard Mom's car drive off, and then the world, which had been so full of life and fun and noise, became intolerably quiet. I barked for a while, but that did nothing at all, though I did smell Smokey just on the other side of the door, smugly taking note of my predicament. I scratched the door. I chewed on some shoes. I ripped up my dog bed. I found a trash bag full of clothing, tore it open the way Mother had when we were scavenging for garbage, and strewed the clothes around the garage. I peed in one corner and pooped in the other corner. I tipped over a metal container and ate some pieces of chicken and some spaghetti and a waffle, and licked out a can of fish that smelled like Smokey's breath. I ate some paper. I knocked over my water dish and chewed on it. There was nothing to do. After what seemed like the longest day of my life, I heard Mom's car pull into the driveway. Her car door slammed, and I heard running feet pound through the house. "Bailey!" the boy shouted, opening the door. I tackled him, overjoyed that we had ended this madness forever. But he stood staring at the garage. "Oh, Bailey," he said, sounding sad. Full of manic energy, I burst past him and skittered around in the house, leaping over furniture. I spotted Smokey and took off in pursuit, chasing him up the stairs and barking when he dove under Mom and Dad's bed. "Bailey!" Mom called to me sternly. "Bad dog, Bailey," the boy said crossly. I was astounded at this false accusation. Bad? I had been accidentally locked in the garage, but was more than willing to forgive them. Why were they scowling at me like that, shaking their fingers at me? Moments later, I was back in the garage, helping the boy, who picked up everything I had played with and put most of it into the trash container I'd knocked over. Mom came out and sorted through the clothing, taking some into the house with her, but no one praised me for discovering where the items had been hiding. "Dog door," the boy said crossly, but he didn't give me any treats. I was beginning to think that dog door was the same as bad dog, which was very disappointing, to say the least. Obviously, this had been a very upsetting day for everybody, and I was certainly willing to put the whole incident behind us, but when Dad came home, Mom and the boy talked to him, and he yelled, and I knew he was mad at me. I slunk off into the living room and ignored Smokey's snide expression. Dad and the boy left right after dinner. Mom sat at the table and stared at papers, even when I approached and put a wonderful wet ball in her lap. "Oh, yuck, Bailey," she said. When the boy and Dad came home, the boy called me out into the garage and showed me a big wooden box. He climbed inside, so I joined him, though the space was hot and tight with the two of us in there. "Doghouse, Bailey. This is your doghouse." I didn't see how the box related to me, but I was certainly happy to play doghouse when treats were introduced into the mix. Doghouse meant go inside the doghouse and eat the dog biscuit. We did the doghouse trick and the dog door trick while Dad moved around the garage, placing things up on shelves and tying a rope on the big metal container. I was overjoyed that dog door had treats associated with it again. When the boy grew tired of tricks, we went inside and wrestled on the floor. "Time for bed," Mom said. "Oh, Mom, please, can I stay up?" "We both have school tomorrow, Ethan. Time for you to say goodnight to Bailey." While conversations like this took place in the house all the time, I rarely bothered to pay attention, but this time I lifted my head at my name, sensing a shift in the boy's emotions. A sadness and regret wafted off him, and he stood, his shoulders slumped. "Okay, Bailey, time for bed." I knew what bed was, but apparently we were going to take a detour along the way, because the boy led me out to the garage for another rousing game of doghouse. I was perfectly fine with this, but shocked when, moments later, the boy sealed me back in the garage all by myself. I barked, trying to make sense of it all. Was it because I had chewed up my dog bed? I never slept in the thing anyway. It was just for show. Did they really expect me to remain outside in the garage all night? No, that couldn't be it. Could it? I was so distressed I couldn't help but whimper. The thought of the boy lying in bed without me, all alone, made me so sad I wanted to chew shoes. My cries grew louder, my heartbreak unrestrained. After 10 or 15 minutes of relentless grief, the garage door cracked. "Bailey," the boy whispered. I ran to him in relief. He eased out, carrying a blanket and a pillow. "Okay, doghouse, doghouse," he told me. He crept over to the doghouse and arranged the blanket on the thin pad inside. I climbed in next to him. We both had 2 feet sticking out the door. I put my head on his chest, sighing, while he stroked my ears. "Good dog, Bailey," he murmured. A little while later, Mom and Dad opened the door from the house and stood there, watching us. I flapped my tail but didn't get up, not wanting to wake the boy. Finally, Dad came out and picked up Ethan, and Mom gestured to me, and the 2 of us were put to bed inside the house. The next day, as if we hadn't learned anything from our mistakes, I was out in the garage again. This time there was far less for me to do, though I did, with some effort, manage to tear the pad out of the doghouse and shred it up pretty well. I knocked over the trash container, but couldn't get the lid off. Nothing on the shelves was chewable. Nothing I could reach, anyway. At one point I went over and assaulted the flap over the dog door, my nose picking up the rich scent of an oncoming rainstorm. Compared to the yard, where a dry, sandy dust had coated our parched tongues every day, the place the boy lived was wetter and colder, and I loved the way scents would blur together and reform when it rained. Wonderful trees, laden with leaves, sheltered the ground everywhere we went, and they would harbor raindrops and release them later when tossed by breezes. It was also deliciously moist. Even the hottest days were usually broken by cooler air at night. The tantalizing odors drew my head farther and farther through the dog door until suddenly, quite by accident, I was out in the yard, without the boy having to push me. Delighted, I tore around the backyard, barking. It was as if the dog door had been put there to let me out into the backyard from the garage. I squatted and relieved myself. I was finding I much preferred doing my business outdoors instead of in the house, and not just because of the lack of drama. I liked to wipe my paws on the lawn after I went, trailing the scent from the sweat on my pads onto the blades of grass. It was also much more gratifying to lift my leg and mark the edge of the yard than, say, the corner of the couch. Later, when the cold rain turned from mist to serious drops, I discovered the dog door worked both ways. I wish the boy were home so he could see what I had taught myself. After the rain ended, I dug a hole, chewed the hose, and barked at Smokey, who sat in the window and pretended not to hear me. When a large yellow bus pulled up in front of the house and disgorged the boy and Chelsea and a bunch of other kids from the neighborhood, I was in the backyard, my paws up on the fence, and the boy ran up to me, laughing. I didn't really go into the doghouse after that, except when Mom and Dad yelled at each other. Ethan would come out into the garage and get into the doghouse with me and put his arms around me, and I would sit perfectly still for however long he wanted me to. This was, I decided, my purpose as a dog, to comfort the boy whenever he needed me. Sometimes families would leave the neighborhood and new families would arrive. So when Drake and Todd moved in a few houses down, I considered it nothing but good news. And not just because Mom made delicious cookies to take to the new neighbors, feeding me a couple as a reward for keeping her company in the kitchen. New boys meant more children to play with. Drake was older and bigger than Ethan, but Todd was the same age, and he and Ethan became fast friends. Todd and Drake had a sister named Linda who was even younger. She fed me sugary treats when no one was watching. Todd was different from Ethan. He liked to play games in the creek with matches, burning plastic toys, like Linda's dolls. Ethan would participate, but he didn't laugh as much as Todd. Mostly Ethan just watched the things burn. When Todd announced he had firecrackers one day, Ethan got pretty excited. I had never seen anything like a firecracker, and was pretty startled at the flash and the noise and the way the plastic doll instantly had a smoky smell, or at least the part I could find after the explosion. At Todd's urging, Ethan went into his house and came back with one of the toys he had built with his father, and the boys put a firecracker in it and threw it in the air, and it blew up. "Cool!" Todd yelled. But Ethan just grew quiet, frowning at the little shards of plastic floating away in the creek. I sensed a jumble of confused emotions from him. When Todd tossed firecrackers up into the air and one came down near me, the percussion snapped against my side. I ran over to the boy for reassurance, and he hugged me and took me home. Having such easy access to the backyard had some advantages. Ethan wasn't always particularly attentive to the fence gate, which meant I sometimes was free to stroll the neighborhood. I'd trot out and go over to visit the brown and white dog named Marshmallow, who lived in a big wire cage on the side of her house. I marked her trees pretty well, and sometimes, caught by a scent that was both foreign and familiar, I would skip off, nose to the air, and wander far from home on an adventure. During those wanderings, I sometimes forgot about the boy altogether, and I was reminded of the time several of us were taken from the yard to the cool room with the nice lady, how the front seat dog had a provocative odor similar to the one luring me onward. Usually I lost the scent, and then would remember who I was and turn and trot home. The days that the bus brought Ethan home, I would go with him over to Chelsea and Marshmallow's house, and Chelsea's mother would feed Ethan snacks, which he always shared with me. Other days, Ethan came home in Mom's car, and some days, no one in the house got up for school, and I would have to bark to wake them all up. It was a good thing they no longer wanted me to sleep in the garage. I would hate for them to miss the morning. One day I wandered farther than usual, so that when I headed back toward home, it was getting late in the afternoon. I was anxious, my inner clock telling me that I had already missed Ethan's arrival on the bus. I cut through the creek, which took me right past Todd's backyard. He was playing on the muddy bank, and when he saw me, he called to me. Hey, Bailey. Here, Bailey. He held out his hand to me. I regarded him with open suspicion. There was just something different about Todd. Something inside of him I didn't trust. Come on, boy, he said, slapping his hand against his leg. He turned and walked toward his house. What could I do? I was compelled to do what a person told me. I lowered my head and followed. 8. Todd let me in his house through the back door, shutting it noiselessly behind him. Some of the windows were covered, giving the place a dark,